He had a big day with the fire department.
Today we're going to learn about the best fantasy creature there is, dragons. Are you not excited? But we're going to learn about what dragons symbolize and different types of dragons, and we're going to learn all about, most importantly, their fire breath. Okay, we're going to work with the Calgary Fire Department, okay, to experiment and figure out how a dragon would stay safe when breathing fire and how we would stay safe if we were around dragon fire. And we're going to even talk to a fire artist. Yeah, a fire artist. Are you excited now? Yeah. Let's go. Come on over. To start things off, we need some draconic details. So I gathered some fantasy experts to ask what they think of when they hear the word dragon.
Destruction.
Dungeons and Dragons, dragons.
Western tradition of dragons and the Eastern tradition of dragons.
The fire breathing.
Beautiful, peaceful dragons.
The first thing that comes to my mind when you say dragon is actually fossils. My name is Marina Fisher. I'm curator and instructor at Nickel Galleries, Libraries and Cultural Resources at the University of Calgary. Oh. Dragon fossils.
Dragon fossils?
Dragon fossils. Sorry, dragon fossils. Dinosaur fossils.
So are you saying that the dragon mythology comes from dinosaur bones?
That is one of the most accepted theories, is that the idea of these beasts and the way how they look like, both Eastern and Western, comes from inspiration or imagination of finding the fossil bones, both in Asia and in North Africa.
I'm of two minds when I think about dragons. I think about the Western tradition of dragons and the Eastern tradition of dragons. My name is Davis Leong. I'm a chemist and teacher, and I'm here to talk about some cool science fiction stuff.
Yeah.
Or fantasy stuff, sorry. We were talking about science fiction earlier. The first thing that typically comes to mind is your classic high dragon, 4 legs, a set of wings, sort of very wicked, draconic looking. And then also I think of kind of the Eastern, more snake-like dragons, sometimes more based in rivers and systems of water, and sort of like traditional dragon dance and things like that in Chinese tradition.
When you think of these different types of dragons, do they represent different things to you?
Yeah, for sure. I think, especially in the Western tradition, dragons are viewed kind of through more that Tolkien lens, agents of evil, chaos, usually kind of acting against the interests of the heroes of the story, typically. Whereas Eastern dragons are usually a little bit more neutral bystander, and if anything, more kind of keepers of wisdom, usually a little bit more viewed as long-term forces of nature, thousands of years, epochs, those sorts of things, versus like I find in the Western tradition, dragons are often more viewed as a bit of an acute problem, right? Dragon comes to the land, you got to deal with it. Dragons are usually long-lived, but in both traditions, but yeah, that's how I kind of distinguish them a little bit more as well.
There's an amazing theory from a scholar in England who proposes that the reason why Eastern dragons are good creatures, benevolent and protectors and guardians, is because they already had the alpha predator in the region, in Asia, which is the lion and tigers. In Europe, there was no alpha predator. So this idea of that primordial fear, that deep-seated terror of nature and unpredictable things that we do not know or do not understand, is then actually embodied in these mythological creatures. So essentially the European dragon is the ultimate death and destruction that nature could bring. Dragon is a metaphor for our deepest fears. And I think because of that, we can actually learn a lot more about ourselves by learning about dragons, because mythology is the language of the unconscious. I think it's really interesting that we have evidence of dragons in stories throughout cultures and throughout history, all over the world. And when something like this happens, it is certainly, in the historic way, a red flag, because we need to pay attention. What does that actually mean? And symbols like that are usually seen as archetypes or primordial images that are deeply embedded in our personal subconscious, but even more importantly, in our collective subconscious. It's something that we share almost through genetic heritage.
That dragon is like the D&D dragon, and the big bad is like the force of destruction. But then I also grew up reading The Dragon Riders of Pern. My name is Jennifer Garrettson. I have a background in biology and life sciences, and I've also read like a lot of books of science fiction, fantasy, and more recently I have been playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, some especially like a dungeon master, a game master. And Puff the Magic Dragon and Pete's Dragon. And so there is like a whole world of beautiful, peaceful dragons that I know that have personality and goodness. The dragons and dragon riders of Pern are telepathically bonded to a rider and have strong personality and tend to be as unique as people and not particularly sources of destruction.
Is there a dragon you can think of that is the most biologically accurate?
Yes, I've been thinking about this. So what you want in this dragon is, I think, technically a wyvern. Right?
Okay.
Like the one, like you don't want a body plan that has wings plus 4 limbs.
Okay.
Right? That's not a body plan that really exists here, right?
Right.
So you want that the wings are the front limbs. So you've got like your head, your wings, and you know, some of them you see that like the
crawl around.
Yeah, right. And then regular hind limbs and tail. You want them to have very light bone structure so that they can fly. Probably some feathers would be great. And since I picture the fire-breathing dragons and stuff like that eating a lot of carrion, you want them to have a nice, clean head and shoulders without feathers there. So I'm describing a non-avian dinosaur or a vulture.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like a vulture.
Right?
A fire-breathing vulture.
Exactly. Or a necrotic breath vulture.
Right.
Yes.
Which dragon do you think has the most biologically accurate fire breath attack?
In the film Reign of Fire, they kind of go the extra mile. They sort of explain the dragons are producing a gas. If you were to see a creature that could breathe fire in that way, I think that's how you'd see it. They would produce a gas, and then they would use their teeth or something in their jaws or mandibles to produce the spark to create the flame.
What sort of gas would it be?
I think it would probably be a collection of natural gases, but I think you would probably find it primarily methane, working up through a few of probably the smaller order natural gases. So those would be things like butane and propane, things like that, things with 2, 3, 4 carbons. And I think you'd find that because probably most of that gas would be being produced by their fermenting food. Right? So whether you would imagine dragons with sort of a multi-chambered stomach or multiple, or a double stomach system, sort of, or like a crop similar to like some birds. And I think dragons mostly we view as pretty specifically carnivorous. So you think about all the meat that would be fermenting and the off-gassing that would happen there. I think that would probably be where you'd see most of those gases produced.
Or they could be like a ruminant, like a cow, and just instead of the methane coming out the back end, it comes out the front.
Comes out the front end, exactly.
Science. So that's how a dragon might produce fire. But how would it stay safe around all that heat? I know just who to ask. Rod, Carol, and Adam with the Calgary Fire Department. So thank you, Calgary Fire Department, for meeting with me today to talk about how a dragon would fireproof itself. So what do you need for fireproofing?
Well, one way, Sarah, that a dragon could fireproof themselves is to wear something that we wear, which is our turnout gear or duty gear. What's really interesting about our duty gear is that it's actually comprised of 3 layers. There is an outer shell, and then an inner moisture barrier, and then a thermal liner on the inside. So those 3 layers work together in a composite system to essentially protect us from fire, but then also allows us to breathe, our skin to breathe in order so we don't overheat.
So if a dragon is breathing fire, because this is great for the outside, but the inside of their mouth would probably need some sort of fireproof material on it. So what sort of material would it be the inside of the dragon mouth?
Well, I mean, our duty gear is made of a couple different types of material. Kevlar, for one. It's a non-flammable material that's also very durable. So you could actually slice a knife and it wouldn't penetrate the outer layer. but also Nomex, which is also inherently fire resistant as well.
I heard about someone making fireproof armor from something else, but I need to go grab a prop. So can you hold this?
I can.
Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so you want this? All right, so I saw a video where someone threw a watermelon onto a fire and it didn't burn on the inside. Do you want this? Okay. All right, it's a different challenge. And then a different one where someone took pineapple skins, Ooh. All right, so someone took pineapple skins and soaked them in borax, dried them out, and was able to make a fireproof like shield and like essentially like a chainmail out of watermelon or pineapple. So. The fruits are too exciting? You're so weird. So with these fruits, why do you think they wouldn't burn?
I think it would probably have to do with the moisture content, and as that steel ball bearing.
Oh. Well, I was gonna eat that, but I guess you get to eat it. Okay, you can have it in a minute. Okay. So, why would watermelon work?
Watermelon, I mean, probably the moisture content, as you see here.
Okay. So then I think let's go talk more about water and why water is so good at resisting fire. Let's go. Okay, so we mentioned that water is why the pineapple and the watermelon didn't catch on fire. And I actually have a really cool demonstration to show this. But we gotta make some bubbles. So we have water, and we're gonna take some soap, some nice brandless soap, and we're gonna make a bunch of soapy water. This is why you weren't allowed to drink at Arbor. Okay. Now we're gonna make propane bubbles.
You're sitting pretty, buddy.
You're sitting really well. No, Arbor, you can't have this.
Oh.
Why? Is that a funny noise? So now we have a tank full of bubbles, and for safety, we are going to remove the propane and we're going to remove the dog, please.
Okay. See you later, Arbor.
Carol, I'm going to get you to hold our fire extinguisher just in case.
Just in case. Okay.
And I'm going to put on my safety glasses. Okay. We're going to light this tub of bubbles on fire. Are you ready? Okay. So all of our bubbles disappeared, so we're going to try again.
Okay.
Jeff! Okay, go Jeff, go. Okay, 3, 2, oh. And the plastic basket didn't burn at all because of water's high heat capacity, which means that it takes a lot of energy for water to heat up enough to burn anything. So when you light fire inside of the plastic bucket, thanks to that water's high heat capacity, the bucket is totally fine.
Nice work.
Thank you.
And
now,
I didn't need to use this?
Good. But hold on to it because I have a slightly more dangerous version of this that I can do.
Oh.
Jeff, propane. This is just pure water.
Okay.
And so using that high specific heat capacity of water, I'm going to soak my hand in that water, scoop up those flammable bubbles, and then light the bubbles on fire in my hand.
Sounds like a bad idea.
It does, but with the power of science, I'll be safe.
Okay. I'm going to trust you.
Okay. You're welcome to take a step back if you want. If you don't trust me. I got to prove that trust.
There.
There you go. Okay. I will get ready as well. So soaking hand and forearm to get as much of that water protection as possible. It's very windy right now. Okay. We're gonna let this wind gust go away. That will make it more dangerous. Okay. Go Jeff, go. Okay, so I've scooped the bubbles, wiped off the back of my hand. 3, 2. And thanks to
Wow.
water, I'm perfectly safe. Thank you. All right, Arbor, you can come back. So I guess I probably should have said, don't try that at home. Don't try it at home. Don't try it at home. And you guys probably shouldn't try it at home either. That's true. Thank you all so much for joining me and for helping me out with learning what a dragon would need in order to be fireproof. Pa.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
I'll take one more.
Look at him. Give paw. Oh, no.
Oh,
We're gonna be a good sport. Okay, okay. No, don't lie down. Paw. Oh, sorry, Rod. I think Arbor was just tired out from all that excitement. And fruit. I'll let Arbor sleep off the sugar while I talk to our fantasy experts about one of the most exciting things about dragons. Now, if you were to get attacked by a dragon, suffer a dragon attack, what would you do? What would your strategy be for survival?
Oh, I was gonna say die.
I am Odarin Tobin. I am a big sci-fi and fantasy geek and have been for pretty much my whole life. I've been into Dungeons and Dragons for many years now, as well as playing some other tabletop games in which I've played and been the game master for. And I'm also writing my own sci-fi narrative podcast with some friends.
Number one is like finding a wet area, probably, assuming it's a fire-breathing dragon, of course. I don't think you can outrun a dragon, right? Especially like a flying, like it's like trying to outrun a B-29 bomber or whatever they're called. Like you can't outrun a plane, so why try? Like I guess escaping its eyesight is a big thing as well. Yeah.
Okay, so sneak and wet.
Yes, those would be my main things. Yeah.
It's a very unique.
I'm gonna be I'm gonna be in a big wet blanket and just inching along the ground and hope that it doesn't go. That's a meal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's wet, gross.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it's that kind of dragon where it's like, ooh, yeah. Really pompous dragon.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, run and hide is probably your best bet right away, I think, with a dragon. And you gotta just sort of hope that it doesn't really notice you or care about you a little bit.
Just hide.
Yeah, and then the classic, you gotta...
Like the small mammals we are.
Yeah, exactly. And you gotta probe for the same few fantasy dragon weaknesses, right? Are the wings weak? Is the underbelly weak? So those would really be your only chances.
Jump on top. That's the this you just gotta get up there. You gotta get behind on their neck, behind their horns. Usually I picture them with like giraffe horns, and you just hold on there. I mean, they're gonna try to like claw, but I figure you could maybe move back between the shoulder blades. There's got to be a spot on top that you're safe.
That's a very interesting tactic. It's bold. It's a bold tactic. Do you have a favorite dragon attack sequence that you know of from a movie or a show? Or one that just like, when I say dragon attack, this is what you think of?
I kind of liked when I played the Shadow Dragon that it was like a necrotic breath weapon, and that at least has maybe a more interesting and disgusting cinematic image rather than just fire. I like doing that. Yeah.
So that leads very well into a question about what are these different types of breath weapons?
Almost in some ways, there are so many dragons in D&D, it kind of almost diminishes breath weapon, because you can have a breath weapon of any damage type. Lightning damage. A fun one would be thunder damage.
Oh.
You could put the two together into a storm-ish dragon.
That'd be very cool.
That would be fun. And of course, like there's all the like cold dragons, and then like the swamp dragons with acid attacks, and I'm sure there must be water dragons, but what would you call that? That's not really cold, is it? I guess that would be bludgeoning.
Yeah, a big, like a big fire hose of water.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there is no limit.
Right.
If you can think of how to destroy things, you have a draconic breath weapon on your hands.
So what sort of breath weapon do you think is the most destructive or the coolest?
I'm of two minds with this one as well. I think acid is probably the most like objectively terrifying. And you think about like the xenomorph from the Alien series and things like that, and the way they show the acid breath or the acid saliva in that. And I think if you think about that on a grand scale, you can kind of imagine the horror of it pretty quickly. The other one I would probably say is lightning. I think acid breath is a little bit easier to conceptualize in thinking about how a dragon would use it. But lightning breath is just terrifying because like it would happen at the speed of light. And what are most adventurers wearing, especially if they're going up against dragons, is plate armor or things that are going to attract a lot of electricity. So that's one that I think would be particularly terrifying, because what do you do about lightning attacks, really?
I think force damage, like just thinking of like this big blast of air would actually be quite quite destructive.
Like a big concussive wave.
Yeah, a Fus Roda from Skyrim, if you would.
Oh, dude, time.
A time dragon?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think that would probably do it.
Yeah. You run it forward 100 years, man. You're gonna take
my
down
gosh.
all kinds of sphinxes in D&D kind of have that sort of time skippy ability, which I've always been terrified to actually have in a game. But if I really wanted to take down somebody, we would bring some time into the equation.
That's a very unexpected but absolutely accurate answer. A time dragon is truly too terrifying to consider. So instead, I'm going to head back to Calgary Fire headquarters to learn how we could deal with the other slightly less scary breath weapons. From
Randy Chevrier with the Calgary Fire Department. I'm a community safety officer. We do all the education and outreach to the citizens. We talk to vulnerable populations, seniors, new Canadians, and children about fire safety, water safety, and ice safety.
So you're the perfect person to talk to about if there was a fire attack, or a dragon fire attack, what we do.
Yeah, if a dragon came, you know what, we'll have to make some adjustments to our protocol, but we definitely have some ideas.
Great. What do you need to make a fire?
So to make a fire, we call that the fire triangle, you need fuel, you need heat source, and you need oxygen. Fuel can be anything in the form of materials that can burn. It could be paper, it could be wood, anything that burns can be fuel for fire. Then a heat source can come from if we get too close to a heating device, if we have open flame, anything that can cause heat to mix with that fuel source can produce fire, especially when you have the presence of oxygen like we have in abundance in our atmosphere.
So with our dragon, they breathe fire, and we've got this big fire starting. And then would we use like normal water, you think, to put that out?
Yeah, so for a typical fire that uses fuel source would be combustible materials like paper, wood that we would find in people's homes. We definitely would use water, and water would cool it down, so it would remove that heat source.
Okay, so if we had a dragon attack, it'd be a really good idea to have a fire truck
Absolutely.
with us with this. So tell me a little bit about how much water does a fire truck hold?
Every engine contains about 2,500 liters of water. That's like 10 bathtubs full of water.
Oh, wow.
So the fire trucks all have the ability to tap into the city's water system via fire hydrants. So
we know all about fire hydrants.
Yeah, well, absolutely. With Arbor. So do you guys want to check out inside where we actually manage the flow of water?
Or you want to go inside the fire truck? Yeah? Okay, let's go. Let's go. That
All
sounds great.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Arbor, you want to go up?
What's in the fire truck? Let's go see. Let's go see you go up. Go up. Oh. You go.
This is the pump panel.
Okay.
And Sarah, this is where we control all the flow of water into the truck and the pump and out. So, you know, the most dangerous thing I can think of in the case of what we're talking about today is coming face to face with a dragon and not having any water.
Oh, that would be a really bad day.
Yeah, that would be a bad day. That would be a bad day.
So a fire truck with water is super important for a normal dragon fire, but sometimes dragons breathe other things, like what would we do if a dragon breathed oil?
Well, let me show you.
Okay.
So if we had a fire on the stove, cooking oil fires are the most dangerous types of fires.
Okay.
We definitely don't want to throw water on them because water and oil don't mix, and that could cause an explosive type of fireball that could burn you and obviously start a fire in your home.
Okay, so the opposite of what we do with a normal fire.
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
the opposite. So if we had a cooking oil fire, so let's say
Arbor,
we
look.
had a fire
Arbor, look.
and there was a pot on the stove and you walked in and that oil ignited. Okay, so all we want people to do is make sure they have an oven mitt to shield them, a proper fitting lid for the pot or pan that you're using, and we want them to smother the flames, and then it would remove the oxygen and the fire would go out. We also want them to turn off the heat. So we remove two components to that fire triangle. We remove the oxygen and the heat.
But what if we had a dragon with a different type of breath, like lightning breath? Lightning breath would be electricity, right?
Yeah.
So how do you put out an electrical fire?
We want to make sure, first of all, with any electrical items, we don't overload the circuits.
What does overload mean?
So if we have too many things plugged in to an outlet, for instance, as electricity travels through wires, it produces that resistance, and that resistance is like friction.
Oh, okay.
And that friction in the wire produces heat. So when you have too many things drawing power from the home, it will overload essentially the wires, more heat than the wires and the insulating component of the wire can handle, and that's where the fires start with the electrical fires. So if we did have a fire in an electrical device, let's say for instance the microwave, we want to make sure that if you see it, you keep the door shut, okay? Make sure we don't introduce that oxygen, and then we want to unplug it and cut the heat source, or cut the source of electricity. Once we do that, we let it cool off, and again, we exit the building, call 911, let the firefighters come and make sure everything's good. But the key to stopping those electrical fires is to basically cut the power. And then it's treated like a regular fire. Unattended heat sources are really the number one cause of fire. So the big thing is to make sure that if you're using something, you're monitoring it. And if you have a dragon in the area, you watch out where he's walking.
So monitor your electronics, monitor your cooking oil, monitor your dragons.
That's right.
Great.
Yeah. So if we had a fire where you kind of walk in and everything goes, then we want to tell people that if you see something like this, the message is get out, stay out, and call 911.
We should probably get out.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, let's go.
We made it out.
So we really got out there because we heard that fire alarm and we got out. So how important is it to have a working smoke alarm?
Actually, it's super important. We always say that working smoke alarms save lives. And we want to have smoke alarms in every bedroom, outside the sleeping areas, and on every level of the home, including the basement.
Well, thanks, Randy. I think we've learned a lot, and we're definitely gonna smother our cooking oil fires. We're gonna unplug our electrical fires. We're gonna spray regular ones with water, and we're gonna get out to our meeting place and call 911.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah and Arbor, for visiting the Calgary Fire Department. We are honored to have you today, and hopefully your listeners learned a little bit about fire safety and some of the science of fire while they're at it.
What a great motto. Monitor your electronics, monitor your cooking oil, monitor your dragons. And to know which dragons to monitor, it's time to stump our fantasy experts with the most challenging questions of the day, starting with, who's your favorite dragon? You have to pick a favorite.
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky one for sure.
Yeah. Playing metallic dragons who are protectors of cities is my very favorite thing to do.
Saphira from the Aragon series.
Yeah!
Yeah, so that one I think...
Sorry, I'm not biased.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I quite like Saphira, that connection to another living being. I prefer to view dragons as like highly intelligent beings, those sorts of things. And I think everyone can kind of sympathize, I guess, with wanting to ride a dragon and having that telepathic connection with another creature.
The dragons in the House of Dragon. Favorite dragon in the show is Vermithor. The dragon emerges from this darkness, from this cave, and is testing these people that were put in front of him as potential riders. And then he just suddenly gets really angry and just starts spewing fire and just burns absolutely everything around him. It was a really beautiful scene. I really... it
sounds a little dark.
It was really well done.
It's the hardest question you have to answer.
Yeah. Smaug has got to be up there. I mean, I read The Hobbit as a kid. It was like the first book I ever like really read as a kid. So Smaug definitely has a special place in my heart. Toothless is another good one.
There's this one dragon from the Silmarillion called Ancalagon the Black, who's so big that he's as tall as mountains and his wings blot out the sun, which is crazy to think about. But I also really love dragons that are like mischievous and like guides, you know?
So I'd have to say my favorite dragon is Parthenax from the video game Skyrim. In Skyrim, all dragons are evil and they want to enslave humanity. However, Parthenax is a formerly evil dragon who has realized the error of his ways and now helps you, the Dragonborn. I also like Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon because he's cute.
If you could breathe fire, would you?
It'd be gret. It would be great to breathe fire. Imagine. It would be so cool. It would be my party trick everywhere I go.
So dangerous.
I would be walking around. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
No, that's just messy.
As long as that fire can be actually controlled, in that case, it is certainly beneficial. But if we are looking at the dragon fire cannot be controlled.
Only if it were completely under my control. Then it would be a great survival tool. It would be like having a built-in lighter. If it was unpredictable, then probably not. I think it would make it hard to get liability insurance.
I think maybe only in the wintertime. It would probably help clear my sidewalk.
I would take flying over fire breath any day of the week for sure, though.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, such practical answers. I'm sure our next incredible fire expert would agree that safety is key when working with fire.
Hello, my name is Sarah Visser. I am a circus artist and I do a lot of different disciplines, but today we're going to talk about my fire eating.
So what are fire arts?
So fire arts or manipulation is when a artist is playing and dancing and kind of manipulating fire in different ways. So you can be a fire dancer where you're going to be manipulating, say, like a fire staff, fans, or like a hula hoop, or poi, kind of like dancing with the fire, doing prop manipulation. And then you can also do, like I do, eating fire. There's fire breathing. Yeah.
Very cool. And how do you keep yourself safe when you're working with fire? Seems a little dangerous.
Definitely. Number one thing is to have a fire safety on hand. So this is a person that you train to be able to put out a fire if necessary. And then that comes with having, for example, I take wet towels and I have a couple spread around, and usually the fire safety sits by the wet towel. So if anything gets lit on fire, then they come over and put it out.
So that person is like your wet towel, but like a good thing.
Yes. The best way to put out the fire is through like captivating the oxygen, right? So you want to cover it completely. It's the fastest way. So that's the number one thing. And then of course we have like a fire extinguisher, and I make sure to have pylons around if there's going to be any people watching, just so everyone takes their space. And then there are a couple other things that can provide like a safer environment. Being indoors is actually safer if you can be inside in kind of like a concrete surrounded area. The reason why is because you don't have the extra element of wind that you have outside. But of course, if you're outside, that's great too. Same thing. You want to be somewhere where there's a lot of concrete. So if you are practicing like a new move and you're spinning your prop and it flies away, it's just on concrete and nothing is going to be lit on fire.
Wind makes sense. We were with the Calgary Fire Department earlier in the episode, and I did an experiment I've done many, many times, but usually indoors, and it was a little windy, and it was like lighting a tub of bubbles on fire. And I was like, oh, the wind is adds a little bit of chaos to this experiment.
Totally. It makes it definitely more challenging, especially when I'm eating fire. I like to check if I'm outside where the wind is blowing, because if I'm going to eat the fire and the wind is blowing towards me, the fire is going to be blowing into my face instead of kind of going up with gravity.
Yeah, which is less good. You don't want that.
Of course. I don't need to burn off all my eyelashes.
Yeah. So that's a great kind of segue into what is the difference between fire breathing and fire eating?
So fire breathing is when you put, and we use different kind of liquids. Fire breathing, typically you use like a lamp oil. So when you put the lamp oil in your mouth and you spit it out onto a torch that is on fire, and then you'll have like that dragon breath, essentially. And when you are outside, you have that extra element of wind, which can be actually super dangerous, because now not only do you have to make sure you're spitting out the fire correctly, but you also don't want the wind to be blowing into you and pushing that liquid that you're spitting out back towards you, because that's when there's potential for having the fire come back inside your body, which is a big no-no. We don't want that. Yeah. And that's actually, fire breathing can be quite dangerous. There have been people who have collapsed a lung, and typically that leads to death if the fire comes back into your mouth and if it gets like breathed back into your body.
This would be a very strong vote to tell people not to attempt this or do any sort of like aerosol spray breathing fire challenge without a lot of training and safety.
Absolutely not. You don't go to the gas station, get some gasoline, and breathe fire, eat fire with that. That is not the right kind.
Okay. It's a good tip for sure.
Yeah. So eating fire, on the contrary, is when you have a fire torch. And typically I use white gas. So I use like a camping fuel. And this, you'll dip the torch in camping fuel, light it on fire, and then you'll put it in your mouth. And typically with eating fire, again, it's kind of a technique of what you're doing with your mouth. So you'll put the torch on your tongue, and then you'll make a kind of round motion to kind of keep the fire away from the rest of your mouth, and you'll blow out very quickly. I get a few classic comments. One, people ask me if I'm actually eating fire. They think it's some sort of trick. So I tell them, no, I'm actually eating the fire. And then they typically ask me if it's like, how do I not burn my mouth? Like, isn't it hot? And the answer is, I do burn my mouth, and it is very hot.
Awesome. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for talking with us and giving us a bit of insight into how humans could breathe fire, potentially, and be as close to dragons as we can.
Well, thank you. I had so much fun.
Awesome. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
That was more than I could have hoped for. We learned about dragon biology, dragon mythology, fire safety, and fire breathing. And I even got to wear this super awesome red Dragonfire D&D button-up shirt, which was the perfect shirt from Geek Tropical, who actually print everything made to order and use eco-friendly inks, so they are way better for the environment than a fire-breathing dragon. I wonder what breath weapon you would have. Probably something pretty chaotic, you know, like the necromancy breath that was mentioned would be a good one, or the time breath. You know, that was the best day. Except the part where you stole my watermelon. I was really looking forward to that watermelon. But you know, hey, at least we still got the pineapple. So I'll have this later, which my pineapple. You already got the watermelon. You know what? This is for my hoard and my hoard alone. No, get out of here.
Was that you?
That was him.
Oh my goodness. I almost thought it was me. I was like, I don't feel anything, but...
No, it's him. Happens more when he's got to sit down.